All right. Hi, everyone. Let's give a couple seconds if people want to tune in or not. All right. Thank you. Welcome back this week. First, I need to thank everyone's overwhelming support for last week's streamed video. I did try to read as much comment as possible, and unfortunately, that's a lot. Over 1,000 comments there. I couldn't reply to all of them, but I did take notes and take a mental note of that. Something that's important to discuss. All right. So, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Jonah, and thanks for coming in this early in the morning. Well, so like I said last week, I said like this week probably I won't be talking about COVID, but that's why I didn't really plan about that. Uh, you know. From the last Sunday talk, but since CDC just met a few days ago and made a blanket statement to recommend the 2023 updated COVID-19 vaccine for everyone 6 months and up. Now, you may be someone who doesn't question the officials. Well, if they said that, I'm going to do that. All right, that's okay. But if you're on this channel, you probably question and you probably wonder, do I really have to get it again, or what are the real benefits, right? Especially if even though if you don't question, but if you're in someone in a category that, well, I just got COVID a few months ago, couple weeks ago, shouldn't I have like immunity for this XBB subvariant, right? Now, so here I am here to fill in some gaps that was left by the CDC meeting on September 12th and tell you why I am hugely disappointed by the CDC again. Right, as expected. So we're going to go through several articles, one that I'm going to break down a little bit further and then pull out a few to support some of the data there. So let's take a look and explain what should you do, okay, if you had some COVID, okay, mild or severe, and you recovered, what should you do, right? Let's take a look. All right. Now, so the first article here is a retrospective study looking at COVID-19 infection rate in vaccinated and unvaccinated inmates in the California Correctional Facility. Okay, the entire state. Now, this article, basically started by saying that, well, this year, 2023, no matter if you are vaccinated or previously infected, it has been very common to see people getting COVID again. I believe most of us would agree. Many people around me are in these two categories. So the multi-million dollars, it really is multi-million dollar question, is that is still, which is better, immunity from vaccine or immunity from infection, or aka natural immunity, right? That has always been a debate. Some were saying that, well, natural immunity is not that great. Some were saying the opposite. And then there are always studies to argue both ways. Now, this study is a retrospective, okay, not perfect. It's a retrospective study looking at bivalent vaccines on COVID-19 infection from January. Okay, let me see if I can put that from January to July 2023. So about 6 months period in 96,201 incarcerated individuals. So this has some limitations. So this is in a very closed environment or closed community, right? It doesn't have a lot of interactions with the outside, but nevertheless, it is a pretty good model to see what happened in a good sized community. Now, in this population, about 38% had bivalent vaccine, 76% had at least 2 doses of the primary series, and then about a quarter did not receive any COVID-19 vaccine. And about half of those 96,000 people had COVID at some point in time. So overall, about 84% of the that population had COVID immunity from either vaccination, infections, or both. So immunity from vaccination or natural immunity or hybrid immunity, okay, if it is both. So they use the number of infections and population at risk and then basically calculate the rate of it. Right. So let's look at, very briefly on this figure 2 here. So this figure 2 breaks down the studied population, 96,201 to begin with. Okay, 2,835 had confirmed COVID. And then the study saw that 1,187 cases who had received the bivalent. Some of the monovalent the population they didn't study. And then they saw 568 cases in those who were unvaccinated with either, okay, none of those vaccines. Okay, so they and then also further broken down into age 50s and above and 65 above, and determine the percentage of infected people in each subgroup. So the study is pretty crude, pretty simple design in a way of speaking. So here in table 1 here, they presented some number. Well, look at those. I highlight a little bit. It's quite interesting in terms of the percentage infected. The bivalent vaccinated group showed a higher percentage of infection in statewide, age 50 and above, and age 65 above than the unvaccinated, right? So 3.24%, 2.72% in unvaccinated versus 4.07%, 3.1%, 6.45%, and 4.5%. Well, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. It's like, does that mean unvaccinated group had a better immunity? Now, we do have to be very careful, okay, here when we are interpreting these small differences that are within, okay, 1 to 2%. It's not a whole lot, okay? It's less than 2% differences. So the question is, like any type of these comparison study, we need to know, are they statistically significant, okay? Now, so let's do the diligence here. Now they did stated that, okay, they use something, they used 5%, okay, 5 p-value less than 0.005 as the statistical significance, to calculate the statistical significance, and they show that, okay, less than 0.05. The bivalent vaccinated group showed a slightly but statistically significant higher infection rate compared to unvaccinated group in the statewide category and as well as in the age 50 category. Now, in terms of the differences in the 65 and above group, it was not statistically significant because the sample size was too small. All right. They also identified that about 42% of the infection were in the bivalent vaccinated group. So the author, okay, did stated something quite interesting. Let me see if I can find that sentence there. Basically, they were saying, well, the result that they find they were perplexed or confused or baffled as to why their result did not show COVID-19 vaccine reduce infections like the others. Well, honestly, I am quite perplexed as to why they wrote it like that, because there were also many studies that shows infection reduction's ability from the vaccine is short-lived. This is known fact, and there are also many studies that show natural immunity from infection is not particularly inferior to vaccinations. And here I'm going to just to pull out several more recent analysis to support what I've just said there. All right. Okay, let's see. Here it's the study or a systematic review and meta-analysis that was published in the high-tier journal, The Lancet, earlier this year in between February and March of this year. Now they, let's look at some quick summary here there. Basically, they concluded that, past infections or natural immunity protects against reinfection by Omicron dropped to about 36.1% at 40 weeks or about 10 months. But more importantly, protection against severe disease remained quite high at about 89% or so for Omicron BA1 at the same time frame, 10 months. So this is one meta-analysis. Okay, let's look at another one here. Now, so here is another meta-analysis published in the Lancet subgroup journal Infectious Disease, still quite high tier. This one is not purely looking at natural immunity, but also look at hybrid immunity. So people had infection, had vaccinations. So in the past, I've discussed that, basically this group should theoretically have the most, the strongest immunity. Okay, so what they find is that these type of immunity, hybrid immunity, can protect these from hospital admissions or severe disease at about 97 0.4%, okay, at 12 months, with this primary series vaccinations and some infections there. So that's about, and it was about 40 some percent against reinfection. So against reinfections, it's really not that great, regardless of what's happened, regardless of your history or immunity history. So now, how does it compare to vaccination alone here? All right, let's look at another study here. Now, this study, again, it's a good high tier one published in the New England Journal of Medicine. So this is abbreviated versions, is a correspondence. So it's basically, it says durability of bivalent booster against Omicron subvariants. Again, this is from May of this year, fairly recent. Now, this study showed the effectiveness, okay, against severe disease from this bivalent, okay, in hospitalizations or death reached about 67.4% after 2 weeks of vaccinations, and progressively decreased to 47.5% after 4 weeks, 44.3% after 10 weeks, and 38.4% after 20 weeks, so about 5 months or so. Now, if we look into the figure, now this is a little bit small. Let me blow it up a little bit. Oops. Now, they didn't write it out for infections, okay, but here is the graph to show you that the effectiveness of this bivalent against infection, okay, just pure any type of infections, it's quite actually disappointing there. After 2 weeks, well, it jumped to 30%, and then it progressively dropped to almost nothing, okay, to prevent infections or maybe reinfections. We don't know here. So here is, three studies we quickly went through, but let's regroup a little bit here, just do a little bit recap. So the two meta-analysis basically concluded that natural or hybrid immunity against severe disease remain quite high at about 90%, after about 10 to 12 months or so. Now, on the other hand, the booster study showed that the effectiveness against severe disease dropped to about 38% after 5 months. Okay, now certainly I have to say that very clearly, we cannot really directly compare these studies. The two were meta-analysis. Okay, they were looking at different, many 10, 12 studies and try to do analysis there. The other one is more of a clinical study, so it's not a direct comparison. And I have to say that I'm not a meta-analysis expert, so I couldn't critique too much of the way that they did those two studies. But based on that, they are peer-reviewed and published in high-tier journal. I would say that it is very likely those are good quality studies. So I would pretty trust those analysis and conclusions myself. Now, the thing is that, so basically the bivalent booster from last year was not not that great, less than perfect. Here we look at natural and hybrid immunity. If it is not better, they are at least comparable to vaccine in protecting against severe disease. And remember, these vaccines these days, the emphasis is always against severe disease, namely hospitalizations and death. Now, I said that I was quite disappointed or hugely disappointed, really, about the CDC meeting that happened on the 12th, because they did not cover the timing of this new 2023 booster after previous infections or recent vaccinations, for any, if you want to say that. Now, some advisory committee member did ask the CDC representative, and unfortunately, the CDC did not give any specific answers during the meeting. They replied something like arbitrarily, like 3 months, right? Will you recovered 3 months? Go ahead, get it. But there were any supporting data. There were not any supporting data from their, basically their recommendations. So now, from what I've gathered so far in these couple of days, reviewing, I don't agree with their suggestion. Honestly, 3 months appear to be too short, in my opinion. Too short. 3 months after an infection, if it is non-complicated, you get a vaccine again. I don't think the benefit is that much. Okay, now that's no data supporting that. So CDC always, basically said that the benefits outweighs the risk for all age groups 6 months and above, and that's why they, give these recommendations. Now, let's pretend that for a second that the risk is negligible, all right, other than some of the immediate vaccination reactions, everything is negligible. Now, at the same time, the benefits do vary among different age groups and and people with different immune status and timing since the last infections, and they really didn't specify any of those in their recommendations. Now, for someone who has recovered from COVID recently without complications and acquired a natural or hybrid immunity, there's really no clear evidence or guidance to support the benefit of the new booster at this point. There may be some coming up. Okay, unfortunately, the CDC didn't even present anything. And I doubt the manufacturer had anything. If they had anything, they would have presented, right? So would you take a medicines or any type of interventions that has no significant benefit, even though it has not much risk? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Now, on a side note here, I do want to point out an example. Just again, a few days ago, in the last week or so, the FDA concluded that a over-the-counter medication called phenylephrine, which for decongestant, for stuffy nose, did not help with a stuffy nose. And even though it has minimum side effect, the FDA didn't like it. Okay, this example said that, well, they maybe will be removing that from the market. So they really does not like ineffective drug that is in the market. But somehow, from the past couple years, I really think when it comes to COVID-19 vaccine, it seems that the measuring bars does move a little bit, right? It's not like they tolerate a little bit more for the COVID-19 vaccine effectiveness from what I can see. So that's the FDA. Back to the CDC. I believe their straightforward recommendation, just blanket statement, 6 months and above, go get it. Does help to remove vaccine access barrier. Well, basically simplifying the message. People don't have to think too much. It was like, oh, I'm old enough. Okay, I haven't got it. Well, let's go get it. Right? It's simple. And for certainly for people who are very concerned and about even a mild cases of COVID-19, they would have no problem getting it as soon as the vaccine hit the market. I understand that. Okay, I completely understand that. I think these people should get it right away. But they should also expect that the protections from these vaccine that is with the same technology, a slightly different spike protein. There's not much different there. You don't expect that to last any longer than the previous iterations of these vaccines, okay, in terms of against infections or reinfections. Um, uh, you know, basically they wing about a month or two or so, right? Now, in terms of protection against severe disease, that's most people that are worried about. I do think everyone need to consider for themselves. Now, especially, the CDC did not provide clear evidence guidance for people who just recovered from either complicated or non-complicated COVID-19. And I hope this video, by me pulling several studies, have shed some light in this regard. Honestly, the 2-3 months period there, if you go get it right now, it's the benefit is not much. Your immunity is already high. Give a booster there, it's not going to change anything. Plus, within February to about last month or so, it was still the XBB dominated strain. So if you got infected within 2023, honestly, chances are you got infected with the XBB and you're getting an XBB-based vaccine again. It's not much of a difference. honestly, in terms of the antigens that it provides. Now, certainly, I'm not here to encourage everyone to go get infected. There are also other risks associated with infection, not just it's not that plain simple. But there's one last note that I do want to point out. If you unfortunately got infected, very recently, here is a interesting, more recent study. I haven't got time to read it all through yet, but there's a the title says previous immunity shapes immune response to the booster vaccinations and the Omicron breakthrough infection risk. So this again in the same area telling you, wow, you got infected. You got, it does change a little bit in regards to how you respond to the vaccine. And just looking very quickly based on the abstract there, it says viral exposure before vaccination was crucial in achieving a robust IgA response. So what is IgA? For those of you who are not familiar with these different types of antibody, IgA is mucosal antibodies. Okay, it really provides the first line of defense against respiratory antigens, like the viral particles and all these. So far, there hasn't been a lot of evidence saying that this vaccine alone can stimulate a lot of the IgA productions, but certainly with the infection, having a mucosal exposures to the virus, it stimulates more IgA, and IgA is beneficial in providing that first line of attack against the virus. So just another note that here, so you got infected, you recovered, it is perhaps sometimes even a little bit good thing in a way of speaking. It provides a broader antigen recognitions than vaccination alone. So that's all for this content. And I have all these familiar names and profile pictures. It's not faces; it's profile pictures that is hopping along. I do want to quickly read through some of those comments and see if I can anything I need to put worthy for pointing out. Yeah, if you survive that one infections, wouldn't you survive again? Yeah, it's I've yeah, you will feel bad, probably getting another infections, go through a couple of days of rough days, but likely the survival is higher than the second time. Many people did, left me comments, and the people that I know, second infection didn't seem to be as bad as the first one. And also the virus, changed like the original strains, the Wuhan strain, the Alpha, and all these were pretty, hefty, the symptoms. And as we progress to Omicron and subvariants, it appeared to be the cases were more mild, either from build-up immunity or maybe the virus is actually a little bit weaker. There's, different evidence pointing to that. So, yeah, I'm not sure if they pass out mouthwash to prisoner. That's a good question. All right. Natural immunity, does it provide a broad spectrum of coverage? It does broaden your recognitions of different antigen part, from the virus, not just the spike protein. So in that regard, it has some advantage if you got infected. All right. Okay. So this question is like, so the vaccine drops off in protection, but no benefits to boosting. Now, this is, well, depending on the benefit, like I said, the benefit and risk, it varies among different age group, population, your immune status, right? It drops off in protection. Now, I don't know, it's protection against reinfections, infections, or severe disease. Any of these booster, once you boost it, your antibody is going to go up, and your protection against infection or reinfection in that short amount of time is going to be higher. All right, and the antibodies slows down, wanes off, and you lose that very rapid response to viral exposure, so you don't have that high of a protections. But since we have T cell stimulations, and all these, it still provide some higher degree of against severe disease, right? So I have a questions on the RSV shot for elderly. Now, RSV shot, the science of it, we covered quite a long time ago about how it was made and the history of it. RSV shot, they did went through a much longer study, okay, compared to the COVID-19 vaccines in terms of development, testings, and all these. So that's a topic. It's a little bit more complicated to break down here. Just to, it does provide more evidence in the beneficial side for the elderly. So okay, the side effect side, we still need to look into it a little bit further. Okay, I'll try to make another quick update, when it comes to it. But meanwhile, okay, check out the science-based video. I think I made it in May, I think before I left for my trip. Okay. Okay, thanks for all the comments here. Okay, great discussions. Okay, are there any study on natural immunity? So there actually another one or two that's in the natural immunity realm there. I hope to be able to group together and bring in some further insight in the coming weeks there. Okay. All right. So that's everything. Okay. Again, thank you for everyone that's tuning in this early in the morning. If you're on the West Coast, it's 6 something there. And again, this channel is dedicated to providing evidence for people to make informed health decisions and live a healthier life there. And I hope to see you again next week. And thank you again very much. All right. Have a good rest of the day. Bye. Take care.